oh, look at me, jobless, homeless, pregnant, packing for Perth. Somewhere inside, innately, when you become a mom, there's that natural instinct in terms of protection and mothering. And she grabbed me, like, where are you going, Mommy? Your brother's crying, and I just saw him, and she says, I'll just put that thing back in its cot. I need to come and have a coffee with someone because I feel like I'm going to jump off a bridge. You don't need to be the perfect mom. A FIFO husband, crazy. You're like trying to rinse the soap out your hair quickly and trying to get this towel around you and pick up the one and pick up the other. And by the time you finished all of that, your hair is like standing up because it's dried with soap in it. We would all do it again, right? As it is the greatest blessing. Yeah.
Hi, welcome to Mother. My name is Audrey and I am your host. This is a podcast where we talk without the filters. We have the hard conversations, the one that we usually keep to ourselves, because somewhere along the way, the hardship of motherhood became something that we're not supposed to say out loud, and I would love to change that. I want the conversations to be a normal part of motherhood, not taboo, not hidden. This is not about complaining. This is not about being ungrateful. It's about being real about what this actually is, without shame, without guilt, and without feeling judged for it. The women who are here are real, and these are their experiences. And they've been so brave and generous enough to share them out loud. So this is a safe space. Judgment, criticism, and unkind comments are not welcome here. That's the whole point. We want to protect these conversations so no mother has to feel alone and isolated in their journey. So if you're a mother and motherhood has been so much harder than what you expected, you're not alone. I see you.
Michelle, welcome. Thank you, first of all, for being here with me. Thank you for being open to go back to your journey through motherhood, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything that comes with it.
Cool, yeah. Glad to be here.
I think I can say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the right way to calculate that. You've got over 30 years experience in the motherhood space.
You're letting my age out there.
No, it's combined.
Yeah, no, two teenagers.
Yeah.
One just turned 18 and the other one's 15 years.
Yeah.
So a few years under the belt.
30 years experience, it's good. Not the age, just the experience. So your first is 18 now and your second is 16. You and your ex-husband now actually are from South Africa.
Yes, correct.
You have met there, grew up there, and then decided to move to Australia to start a new life together, away from family and loved ones. Landed in Perth for a few years and had your babies here in Perth, and then in the early ages of your kids just moved down south together to start your family. Yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
When I asked you to reminisce and think about motherhood before we came here, one of the big things that came back was to trust yourself and your intuition and how far you have come. Mm-hmm. And I would like to start there, if that's okay with you.
Yeah? Sure.
Do you want to, talk to me about it? Why did that come up for you?
Yeah, I think, obviously you look at other people being mothers and, from your own experience of having a mom and a grandmother and a great-grandmother. I kind of think from little I always knew I wanted to have kids and just experience, that whole realm. And I think having children, a lot of it, you've got different opinions coming at you from all different shapes and sizes and from your parents and so forth. And I think at the end of the day, when you're on your own with that little one in the room, all the other opinions kind of don't really filter in or matter. It's just you and Baba. And so that's when you kind of got to start trusting your own gut and your own intuition. Many a time I didn't know what I was doing, so that flew out the window. But I think, somewhere inside, innately, when you become a mom, there's that natural instinct, right, that we've all got in terms of protection and mothering. It just comes from somewhere, some innate ability, and the rest you learn on the fly, I guess.
Is it something that you feel you had back then, or is it something that you're looking back saying, I should have trusted myself more?
I think, probably when you're in it, you don't realize you've got it. And I think there were a few times where obviously if they cry and stuff and you knew something was wrong and other people are going, oh, no, they're just tired or they're just hungry. But it's more, I suppose, looking back now going, oh, actually, I kind of had that innate ability and I should have listened to myself and my gut instinct a little bit more.
Can you take me to a moment where you felt like maybe that trust wasn't there for you, but you're looking back, it's like, actually, you did. You should have trusted yourself. Like, is there an event or a moment that you feel like you can go back to where you had that feeling of trust but didn't really follow through?
Yeah, I think, little one, she was crying kind of a lot and, you ticked all the boxes and read all the books and did all the things. And I think, I knew something wasn't kind of quite right. And, everybody else was saying to me, oh, it's just what babies do. And, she's crying. And I'm going, yeah, but every evening at 6 o'clock, this is starting and, what's going on? Yeah, so it took me a long time. I wish I'd gone a lot sooner to a midwife or to a doctor and gone, there's an issue, there's something going on here. And, later on she was diagnosed with colic. And we had to then kind of go and change, what she was eating and drinking and all of that. So, I think when you start to figure out the different cries and what the cries mean. And I was reading a book, I think it's Save Our Sleep by Tizzy Hall. A friend had given that to me. That was a godsend, where you start just recognizing the different cries. And I knew there was something kind of going on. If I'd only listened to my gut intuition a lot sooner, I would have saved myself many nights of stress.
Talking about trust and all of that, now this is something that you feel you had it in you, but you were not always following it. And you moved here with your husband to start the family. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me who were you before you had kids? So before you came here, who was Michelle? What was she like? You as you, not necessarily your job or anything, but who was the human?
Michelle. Yeah, look, she, probably fairly confident. I was excelling in my, career. I worked in the advertising industry. So I was a pocket rocket, like a go-getter. I made things happen, here, there, always busy, on the go, very social, friendly, outgoing. Just kind of knew my place in the world and was pretty, set and this is who I am and what I can achieve and, reached all those milestones and targets and, had lots of fun in my career and, lots of improvements and, being promoted and all of that. So probably a little bit of an inflated ego at that stage, kind of going, woohoo, look at me, I've worked on all these big brands and I've worked in Dubai for 4 years and so forth. So, probably a little bit opinionated, a little bit assertive, but, just friendly, outgoing, just confidence, I think, in my own skin at that stage was where I was at.
Yeah. What do you mean by at that stage? What's the other side of that?
The other side, look, the other side of that, we've all got it, all our little insecurities and self-doubts and all of that. I think for me, immigrating and setting up home far away from my network, and I was very close to my mom, my great-gran was alive till I was 22, so the female circle was really tight. And moving away from that and starting somewhere else without knowing a single soul, that kind of chips away at anyone's confidence. Many a moment I was like, what am I doing? I must be insane. I think all that kept me going was, there was obviously all the trouble and stuff, and we all know about South Africa, an amazing country, but, with all the fears and insecurities and stuff happening in that country, I kind of knew, innately that's not where I wanted my kids. I didn't want my kids to grow up in that environment of alarms and securities and high fences, and I wanted them to have the freedom that I didn't have at that stage. So, I think arriving in a country and not having that support was, life-changing. I think it kind of certainly knocked a pegger down too, or, off your high horse or so. I think it was hard. It's probably one of the toughest experiences I've gone through. I used to joke and say, oh, look at me, I'm jobless, homeless, pregnant, packing for Perth. Woohoo! And my mom and all friends were going, Michelle, when you have a baby, like it's a whole different story. And they were all trying to say, just have the baby here, move when, it's a year old. And I'm like, Nah, I've handled BMW and Nike, and I can do this. If only I'd known what I was in for.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
Do you think you would have stayed back in Africa and had your... so you're saying you were pregnant when you moved here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was 6 months pregnant, actually, when I arrived. And we came to Perth because, my hubby had his sister here. So we thought, a little bit of family support, but, everybody's got their own lives. I still would have come because obviously I think what kept me going was I knew I needed that Australian passport, and what a privilege it was to have that, because on a South African passport, wherever you want to go in the world, you've got to apply for visas and it's restrictive. Whereas I knew if I could give my kids that gift of having a solid passport, a solid kind of country, and being able to travel wherever they wanted to go, that was like my big driver. So, but I think if I'd known what I was in for, I would have stayed probably till the kids were a little bit older.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
Take me there. So you are 6 months pregnant, not 6 months old, 6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And you land here, away from family and your support that you had very close. Yeah. Take me there to that first year of you becoming a mum in that new country. How was that?
So I was always pretty independent. So my ex-hubby at the time was still sculpting and finishing off a project in Dubai. And I arrived on my own 6 months pregnant and stayed with his sister and her hubby. And it was all around on the buses and here, there, everywhere, trying to find a rental, buy furniture, all of that. And crazy, right? Waddling around town, not knowing anybody with this big belly. I mean, people were very lovely. Won't you like to sit down? Can we help you, etc. So, that was interesting. That first year. I mean, how much detail do you want me to go into?
Whatever comes, whatever's.
Look, it was. I didn't know what I was in for, right? I think as mothers, everyone tells us, it's going to be one of the hardest jobs, the most rewarding, but the hardest job you'll ever do. And I can do this. I multitask on big accounts like Nike, as I keep on saying, is worth millions. I can do this thing. No. I remember sitting there in tears going, I don't know what I'm doing. This is the hardest job I've ever done. And I remember saying, I've handled all these big multi-million things and money and I didn't know what I was doing. I think it's
amazing how you feel like, because it was very similar for me, like, I've done this, harder things before and this should be fine. Everybody tells you it's hard and you're like, must not be that hard.
Can't be as hard as working, right?
Of course not.
No, never. No, the birth in itself was kind of, pretty intense. And then I was in hospital for 10 days because she got jaundice and stuff, and it was amazing. I mean, and also, coming from when you first go through all the checks, you've got a particular, gynecologist or whatever that's looking after you. And then suddenly I arrived here and I had to use my sister-in-law's guy and just didn't connect with him at all. Didn't like him. He squeezed me in as a favor to her. And it just was not, the whole thing was just not a good fit. So the birth itself was kind of pretty traumatic. I mean, I went into, my water broke and then they put me on a drip and we were waiting for my ex to fly in from Dubai and waited for him to arrive, and then they had to induce me, and it just was one big kind of mess. So, keeping in that hospital, when I left, I was in tears. I was like, then it hit me. I was like, okay, I'm not prepared for this. I've got, my hubby, but he was looking for a job, so he was busy, and then, 2 in-laws, but they had their own lives. And I think at that moment, I'd never felt so alone. I was like, I'm about to take this little thing out this hospital. I just wanted to stay. I was like, can't they just keep me here forever? She had jaundice, so I was very lucky. Thank goodness. I was in there for 10 days. And when I walked out of there, my mom came and she stayed for 6 weeks. And when she left, I don't think I've ever cried so much, ever. Yeah. And every week I was getting divorced.
Common story.
And stuff this place, and I'm going back home, and I think I just kept on going, you've paid so much money and you've gone through this whole process to get approval on visa, and it is such a privilege. Just stick it out for the 2 years, get that passport, and then you can go wherever you need to go. And so that's kind of what kept me going. But yeah, it was not easy. Having a baby, not knowing what you were doing, and being in a foreign country with, after 6 weeks, mom leaving like zero support. Yeah.
Do you find that your experience of the start of motherhood with your first was similar to the start of your mothering journey with your second?
No, look, the first one, like anybody, I don't think you really know what you're doing, and there are all these things that you've got to learn and etc. And then you want to do everything by the book, right? So I read all these books and I was like, save our sleep, and you got to bath at this stage. So I became a little bit like Hitler. You got to bath and feed and etc. And it drove the family nuts, because I was like, if we were out, it was like, we got to get back because, she's got to go down and have a sleep. So I went the opposite in trying to control everything. I became very regimented. In the long run, it worked, because I would be out at friends and stuff and put her down and do the read, bath, sleep, and she would sleep wherever. With the second one, I kind of relaxed. I was like, okay, this is crazy. You drove everyone and yourself nuts by being this regimented, structured person. The second one, so there was 2.5 year gap between them, was a lot easier, I think. You kind of just relax. You kind of go, oh, okay, I've been down this rodeo before, kind of know what I'm doing now. No, I wasn't as near kind of emotional and stressed. Different set of circumstances, because at that stage, ex-hubby was then doing FIFO. So I found myself in a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So he was away for 2 weeks and home for a week. And here I was with a toddler, 2.5, and a baby. So that was another set of, Look, the whole immigrating FIFO experience, I know there's so many women that have been through it in Australia. I think you won't ever understand it until you've actually, as you said, been in it. It just adds in that extra layer and dynamic to motherhood.
Yeah, because it is a thing. Like, there's so many immigrants and mothers and couples that I hear on their own with no family support, no surroundings, and
that's hard.
And you would think, if I was back home, if only I had, my mother, my auntie, my, very close cousin, and having
helpers,
and maybe not, but you have that thing of like, I'm here alone and having to do this. You said something here where you felt like you had to control everything, and you were driving yourself crazy with your first, with like the regimented routine and the bath time and all of that, the sleep. Trust me, I get it. I did the same. Drove myself crazy too. But for you, when did it hit you that, okay, I need to change something? Is there a moment where you remember that there was a shift in how you needed to do things? Mm-hmm. What was that?
Yeah, I think it was, I was very lucky that opposite me, I had a fellow South African lady who I became friends with. Her hubby was a pilot, so he was away a lot. And, thank goodness for her, because the two of us kept each other sane and helping each other. And like, she'd bring her little boy and, bath my two together so that I could, breastfeed the second one. And so that, thank goodness for her. But I think it was, all of us have been through that story. So you've got this toddler and this baby, and, you're trying to get them to sleep and breastfeed. And then little one, all she wanted to do was tea parties and do all the things that I used to do with her and dance. But now suddenly I was having to go, no, sorry, I've got to breastfeed your brother, or your brother needs a bath, or I've got to put your brother to sleep, so now you've got to keep quiet. And she did not like that at all. And also at that age, comes the terrible twos and the tantrums. And I often say Oscar-winning kind of performance she would give, right? So it even became to the stage where I'd be breastfeeding and she'd go, I want a banana. And I'd go, but go and get a banana yourself. You know where they are. No, I want you to get it. No, well, I can't because I'm feeding your brother. And then it would be like Ben-Hur production, right? We've
lights, cameras.
We've all been there, and boy, she could perform. She should have been an actress. I mean, we laugh about it today. She goes, "Oh gosh, Mom." we've all had that moment where you're so overtired and so stressed, and I'd just gotten little one down to sleep, and she decided she wanted to do something, and I was like, no. And we had this huge performance, and I was overtired. I hadn't slept much that night. No help. Hubby's away. I think my friend had been away for 2 days, so I was like on my own. And yeah, we've all heard those moments where we kind of snap. And yeah, kind of dragged her down the passage and chucked her on the bed. And thinking back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, that moment could have so gone wrong. And had to lock myself in the toilet, as most of us have done, in tears, absolutely at breaking point, hysterical, with little one crying and screaming because now we'd woken him up. Her standing at the door and banging, let me in, Mum. We've all been in that stage. And I don't think until you've been a mom and been in that and sitting there and calling hubby who's FIFO going, this is now breaking point. I've got a problem because I'm at that point where I feel like physically I'm going to do some harm here. So I've locked myself in the toilet and I actually don't know what to do. And, he was calling around, got a friend to come over, called a counsellor and so forth. So I think it was at that moment where I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I need to kind of change the way I'm doing things because obviously what I'm doing is not working now that there's another one in the mix.
Yeah. What was that change? What was the thing that helped you in that change?
I think it was like just relaxing a little bit. I think with your first one, you want to tick all the boxes and, as I said, I was very kind of structured and regimented and whatever. And although I kept up the routine because I'd learned how important it was routine and, babies feel secure in that routine sense, I kind of just calmed my jets a bit. You know what I mean? And I had to kind of just relax and go, well, okay, if she wants to tea party a little bit longer and little one kind of doesn't quite get the bath at 5:30, it's okay. Yeah.
So you were already down south at that time?
No, that was still in Perth.
Okay.
So we only moved down south when just before she started kindy primary school, yeah. So I think the first 4 years we were here and then moved down south. Yeah.
And do you feel like your friend that you met was that support? Do you think that also made a change in how you experienced the early journey of motherhood?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, first time round with my daughter, I didn't have any friends. I didn't really know anybody for about the first 6 to 8 months. We were living kind of more Perth Central, and then we moved down, to the Vines, Ellenbrook way. And I made some kind of good friends there. Still friends with them to this day. Our kids have grown up together. But yeah, that kind of beginning stage, like all of us, I'd go to mom's group. And I think the first 6 weeks they were probably when my mom left, I think they were so sick and tired of me. Every time I arrived there once a week, I'd be in tears. And everybody was very lovely and nurturing and whatever. But then you would go home and no one would kind of go phone up or follow up or say, come and, have a drink or come to my house. So, yeah, those first 6 months were very lonely,
Yeah. So talk to me about going down south. So now you're going down south. You've got a 4-year-old and a 2.5.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Is your hubby then still a FIFO?
Yeah. So he was still doing FIFO. So moved on, and beautiful area, such a great community. We lived in Margaret River for a while, and little one was at school, so met some people through that. But then took my son to kind of a play group, etc., and that's where I met kind of my tribe.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I think because it's a smaller community, everybody was a little bit more, kind of around, and you were all in a similar boat. It wasn't as big as the city, so made friends a lot quicker. And those friends I'm still friends with today. So for me, that was a really good move because it took me out of the bigger city environment into kind of a more nurturing, smaller kind of community in a sense, yeah.
Beautiful. So looking back, it seems like the few things that helped you was definitely having people around you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Is there something else that you feel like helped you through those early years outside of the external support that you had?
Yeah, as I said, I think for me it was, the privilege of being in this country and having the opportunity to get that passport. So that was, a big driver. And then, once you kind of settle in and start looking around and going, we've got so many beautiful privileges and freedom kind of in this country. So I was very much aware of the fact that you didn't have to have alarms. I mean, now, obviously, but, back then, that sense of security, of safety, I think is the word. Was such a big driver, and such a blessing to be able to feel that sense of safety. Even when hubby was FIFO, I think if I'd been on my own, even with family and friends support in South Africa, I think sleeping alone at home with a baby, I probably wouldn't have slept. So, at least here I knew, lock the door, and I would lights out. Yeah. So that was a big driver. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now we know your kids are now 18 and 15.
Yeah.
We're talking about the early years of motherhood, but do you feel like looking back on it, because you have the wisdom still in the toddler years and the dramatic performances, do you feel like for you in your experience there was a stage where you were like, okay, we've got this. This is getting better. This is getting easier. Is there a point that things sort of shift?
When they're little, your life kind of does revolve around them, and I think I said to you before, you lose that kind of innate spontaneity where, like, if a friend says, "Let's go for a coffee," and I try to do all of those things and be spontaneous, but because I was in that regimented structure, sorry, I can't. So I think when they started going to school, both of them, and you had that little bit of time, from 9 to 12, and then as they got older, 9 to 3, you kind of started getting like your sense of kind of self back in a sense. So yes, it did become a lot easier. Obviously now that they're kind of teenagers and whatever, you get that back, whereas I can now go, I can go out with a friend to a movie, because, I can leave food, or they're self-sufficient. They can make themselves dinner and get themselves to bed, and mom can go out. I mean, obviously, I'm still very conscious of being around and being present. So I just think you go through different stages, right? Yeah. As they get older, start going to school, and then they get more self-sufficient. Then you can leave them at home for an hour or two, and, now if you're gone the whole day, they can manage. Yeah.
Do you feel like there is a big part of who you are and how you're doing things, and that you can change things yourself? Like you said, like you needed to change the way that you were doing the regimented thing. So it was, okay, I'm doing something, I've got to adjust to be able to create space or have more, less tantrums. Do you feel like there is this part of, I've got tools that I can use to make this easier, versus you grow out of it, of the whole feeling?
I think along the way you just, you learn things. I think you learn from your first one. You do things wrong, you do things right, you adapt and change. And as the second one comes, I think the more kind of children you have probably had, the more experience and kind of things you can manage. So, yeah, just did a lot of reading, a lot of listening to different things, getting inspiration from other moms, trial and error, and, that's kind of how it went. But going back as well, and one thing I didn't cover, which I think a lot of women, back then as well, was the whole breastfeeding side of things, right? So I arrived where the midwives and whatever, talks I went to in those kind of couple of last weeks were very pro breastfeeding, and it's the best nutrition and the antibodies and whatever. So another layer that I added to that regimented structure was, I need to breastfeed this baby, right? And she just wouldn't manage because she's got such a tiny mouth. So I spent those first couple of weeks so stressed, going from different lactation consultant, driving here, there, and everywhere. And sometimes she would, sometimes she wouldn't. We tried all sorts of kind of tricks and hacks and all of that. And eventually, went to using, I felt like a cow. Went to using a double pump, as you do.
I remember.
Oh, my word. So in between sleeping, I was like then expressing, which would take half an hour or whatever. So that ate into your sleep time. Crazy, right? And I did that for 7 months. And the stress and the strain that put me under. I'm not surprised she landed up with colic or whatever, because I was so stressed. Trying to keep, and I had everyone saying, it's okay, put her on formula. No, but the midwife said, and the research says you've got to give them antibodies, and everybody thought I was completely nuts. And I was caught in this whole trap of structure and having to do this, and I think my life was just a constant feeding machine of being able to express enough so that, and I think crazy. At 7 months, I was absolutely exhausted, at breaking point, teary-eyed, and this lovely new midwife said to me, what are you doing? And I was like, but I have to. And she was like, Michelle, you've given your baby more than most women would do. Just stop now. So she gave me this big lecture, and then she talked about formula, and she was like, please, it's okay, and et cetera, et cetera. So through her, thank goodness, she convinced me, to go on the formula route. So I think for a lot of FIFO, women and any other woman, when you come into this whole world of motherhood and you don't really know what you're doing, you kind of rely on other people and expertise, and, you put yourself in this box where you have to do what everyone else is saying, and it's just crazy, right? The amount of pressure that we put on ourselves. And looking back, I go, oh my gosh, I drove everyone nuts, drove myself nuts, just crazy. What we put ourselves through, trying to, I don't know, be the perfect mom or do it the right way, or the way the doctors say, or the, nutritionists say, or the Google search says. Nah, crazy. Yeah. I'd do it differently.
You would do it differently for a third one?
I'm done.
You just said something here. What is the perfect mom?
I don't know. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to kind of have it all together, right? To have this beautiful baby and have them in this routine and breastfeeding and, playtime and friends. And you've got this whole, I don't know if, other moms are like that. I was very much like, right, so now I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it according to the book, and I'm going to do it like they say in the research, and I'm going to follow the doctor's advice. And, you just try and, I don't know, so much pressure we have as moms to get it right according to all this information that's out there. I don't know. I think, looking back now, I wish I'd just actually kind of relaxed and just listened to my gut and gone with the flow a little bit more. But we don't know what we're doing, right? So you look to others.
Yeah, and in this day and age as well, like we said, not having the village, being in a foreign country, not having the expertise of your close ones that you can trust, or having seen them do things differently, as well as, the new science that is coming every month that is completely contradictory to the ones that was last month, and this like constant rabbit hole, like you said, of wanting to be the best mom, and I'm still in search of understanding what the best, being the best mom is. Like, it's a hard concept to gather.
I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, right? Because society kind of goes, oh, you got to do this, and baby's got to be like that, and etc. And hats off to lots of moms have done the FIFO kind of thing, and very much in Western Australia, that's the go. So I added immigrating, kind of not really knowing anybody, and then a FIFO husband. Crazy. Would I do that all again? Probably not.
Not the same way.
Not the same way.
What would you change?
I think, as I said, I would have stayed maybe, for a couple of months, those initial beginning kind of stages where you're so sleep deprived and you do need a tribe around you. I mean, you know, in the whole African culture, if you look at Zulus and Xhosas and whatever, there's, you know, there's a village that surrounds a mom when they have a baby, and there's a reason for that. And
Tell me more about that.
You know, they're very much about to raise a child. You've heard that saying, to raise a child, it takes a village. And I think that concept is so true, because when you're left kind of on your own to do it, it's just, you know, we've all been through it. Yes, you cope because you have to, but I just think having that nurturing and support of other females or even males or your network around you is so important. Yeah. You know, just that being able to go, listen, can you take Baba and change? Because if I don't sleep, I'm going to crack it. Or I actually need to go and have a shower. I mean, I had so many times, and I mean, moms have had this, right? Where you're in the shower and you're lathered up with shampoo and whatever, and baby starts screaming, and then the other one's screaming, and you're like trying to rinse the soap out your hair quickly and stuff the conditioner. And by the time you get out of there, it's like a crescendo, and you look so stressed, you know, and you're kind of trying to get this towel around you and pick up the one and pick up the other. And you know, by the time you finished all of that, your hair is like standing up because it's dried with soap in it. You know, we've all been, just crazy. So I think if you've got that village around you, I think it's looking back, you know, that would have made such a difference. So I think if I'd stayed, you know, and just had the help of people who knew me, would have, you know, I would have been a lot calmer.
Is there a different way mothers and families do these early stages where you come from? Do you feel like, not just because it's your family, but do you feel like there is a different cultural, you were talking about the Zulu and is there a difference in culture in the way that they see the early stages of motherhood over there?
Oh, no, I think it's, you know, pretty similar to you know, what I've experienced or spoken to people in Australia. But because you've got a larger tribe, you've got more people to call on for help, right? So it's not only your immediate family, the moms, the grands, the whatever. You know, you might, luckily, hopefully, I had lots of aunts. I mean, I think there were 50-something cousins. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think looking back, if I'd wanted to go and have a coffee with a friend, or if I wanted to go and, I don't know, go and do a little bit of shopping and just get time out, you know, you could have done that a bit more. Look, I was very grateful. You know, I had my in-laws who tried to help, and obviously hubby was very hands-on. Like when he got home and on the weekends when he was around, he'd go, okay, do the express. So yay, on the machines again. And then, you know, go and shop, go to the beach, etc. But, you know, like all moms, after a while, it becomes too sore and you got to get back and express again. So, yeah, your time's not your own. But, I mean, you know, it's looking back, would I change it? Maybe the way I did it, but having children, no. As you know, I mean, the greatest blessing in my life has been being a mother. The most wonderful experience. And I know the woman out there may be listening who would go, I can't have a child. What's she moaning about and complaining about? So, you know, very conscious of the absolute amazing life blessing and that experience. Wouldn't change it for the world, would do it all again, but I would do it differently.
I love that.
When she was little and this other person came into our lives, she was like, hell no, my daughter. I don't want this other thing. She actually could speak really well, fluently from 2. And I remember one day she goes, he started crying and we were doing a little tea party. And I got up to go and she grabbed me. And she like, where are you going, Mommy? And I said, I have to go and, you know, your brother's crying. And I just saw him and she says, well, just put that thing back in its cot. That thing. And let him cry. And I said, my love, you can't do that. She said, I don't care.
The 2.5.
2.5, like, well, I don't care. It can scream till it screams. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
You know, I want you, and I'm doing this tea party now, and that's all that's important. So, yeah, kind of looking back, you know, the dynamics between the two, a boy and girl, you know, as they grew up, then there was that little bit of kind of, you know, jockeying for favour and positioning, and then I think she maybe felt a little bit that her brother was more important because, you know, when you have a second one, you're a bit more relaxed, so you're not as regimented with the rules.
I don't know yet, but
you'll see.
I probably will be.
And then you kind of...
I'm doing the work for that to happen.
Yeah, so you're a little bit more kind of chilled and you don't maybe put as many rules in place. And funny enough, having conversations with her now as a teenager, you know, there was a stage where she really resented her brother and she thought we, like, loved him more than her. Because he was the baby, you know, so you'd obviously pick up and cuddle and whatever. So the more, and then he was quite a forceful character. He'd run past her to give you a hug. So she started pulling back. So it's interesting as they got to teenagers, the more that kind of dynamic of competition or do you love me more? And it's only now as they're growing up and we're starting to have those conversations and she's talking to other friends going, oh, well, actually other parents and other friends are like this and maybe... You know, Mom didn't prefer my brother to me. Maybe she was just kind of trying to cope. And I was running a business at the time. So, you know, there wasn't that much attention to kind of go around. So I think, yeah, as they grow up, it gets interesting, the dynamics and then the competition and the psychology behind it, you know?
Yeah.
All of that goes on. But, yeah, looking back, you kind of go, whew. I survived that. And then, you know, people go, would you do it again? I remember my mom saying, oh, but you chose to have two. And I go, well, thank goodness, because I grew up an only child, so I always wanted two because I thought, oh, I never got that sibling kind of experience. So for me, it was hard watching them grow up and fighting because I was like, what a privilege it is to have somebody else, a brother or a sister. I wish I'd had that growing up. Even now, like I don't have... You know what I mean? So, yeah, that brings a whole kind of another set of challenges into the mix. But, yeah, you know, we would all do it again, right? Because it is the greatest blessing.
Yeah. To close it off, what would you say to the Michelle who was sitting down in the bathroom crying at the end of drained, not knowing what to do, where to be? Today, looking back, what would you tell her? Because I'm sure out there are some mums that are in this position, but what would you tell yourself sitting there?
That you're not alone, that I think every mom has been through those moments. You know, you got hormones raging and all sorts of things going on, would be to not try and get it perfect. And it's okay to make mistakes. And I think the biggest thing would have been to kind of ask for help a lot sooner. You know what I mean? To kind of just go, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I'm struggling. I'm feeling alone and isolated and whatever. You know, I was waiting for people to call me from the group. I should have picked up the phone and gone, hey, listen, I know you don't know me so well, but, you know, are you free? Are you home? I need to get out. I need to come and have a coffee with someone because I feel like I'm going to jump off a bridge or whatever, you know? So, yeah, I think I would have just gone, ask for help and just realize that other people are in the same boat and you don't need to be the perfect mom. You just got to take every day as it comes, and if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Don't need to be a perfectionist and kind of just roll with it a bit more. Trust your intuition.
Full circle. Back to the trust.
Yeah.
Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
This was lovely. This was a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
And
and hopefully it helps kind of someone out there. I know in WA, you know, we've got a lot of FIFO moms, you've got a lot of expats. It's, you know, until you've been in that journey, you don't really understand it. You've got that extra layer of stress, especially if you're arriving new and having a baby kind of straight away. There's that extra layer of kind of pressure because you're in a country you don't know how it works, how the systems work, where you can go, who can help. Yes, so, just be gentle and kind to yourself and ask for help.
Ask for help. That's the biggest outtake. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thanks,
Michelle.
Thanks,